to what extent can you use long-term capital losses to offset short-term capital gains? And let's assume that the difference is greater than $3,000, so it's not in the exempt category for writing off losses. If I had a capital gain of $50,000, for example, could I use that to write off $40,000 of losses?
All right, great question. This might be a better question for a blog post than a podcast. I don't know if you read the blog and you asked it on the podcast, so let's talk about it. So the way to answer this question is to go to Schedule D. Okay? Schedule D is the capital gains and losses schedule on your 1040. So if you go there, you'll see that Part 1 talks about your short-term capital gains and losses. Part 2 talks about your long-term capital gains and losses. So in your question, we're talking about short-term gains. So you're going to get to the end of Part 1 and you're going to have a gain, right? A gain on line 7 of Schedule D. And then you're going to do Part 2 and you're going to go through all that. And by the time you get to the bottom of that, you're going to have a loss, a long-term capital loss on line 15. Okay, so then you move into Part 3. And that's the summary. And the first step there is you add 7 and 15, those two lines, you combine them and enter the results. So essentially, you're putting the results together. So for the most part, Schedule D is treating them as the same. Okay? But you got to work through all the fine print here in this entire Part 3. So it says if line 16 is a gain, go to line 17 below. If it's a loss, skip lines 17 through 20 below, and then go to line 21 and complete line 22. Okay, so there's lots of stuff to work through there, but this is where you would work through it, is on Schedule D. So if, let's say, I can't remember your example. Let me pause this for a second and listen to that again, and we'll try to use your actual numbers here.
If I had a capital gain of $50,000, for example, could I use that to write off $40,000 of losses?
Okay, so you are using $40,000 of short-term or long-term capital losses and $50,000 of short-term gains. So when you combine those, you're going to have $10,000 of short-term gains left. All right. So that means line 16 is a gain. So you put that on line 7 of your 1040. So lines 15 and 16 are both gains. So you go to line 18. If you're required to complete the 28% gain worksheet, you're not, because that's not a collectible, I assume. You do 19. You don't have to do run recaptured section 11250 gains. Lines 18 and 19 both 0. Yes. So then you complete the qualified dividends and capital gain worksheet in the instructions. Presumably, you don't have any qualified dividends. You probably do, actually. But and then you work your way through that worksheet. You don't hit 21 and 22. So basically, what that is telling me as I work my way through there is that, yes, you can use your long-term capital losses to offset your short-term capital gains. So straight from Schedule D. You don't believe me? Just pull out Schedule D and work your way through it. And I think you'll see that it will work just fine. Hopefully I didn't miss anything there. I'm sure I will hear from the CPAs listening to this if I messed it up.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.